Hello, everyone, and welcome to my podcast, Stories of Swa. Swa is a Sanskrit word that means self, and so the podcast name translates to Stories of Self. My name is Dhira, and I'm a life coach and a transformation facilitator. In my experience of working on my own self first, and then for my clients, I have witnessed some brilliant, magical, empowering stories of transformation when we tap into our true self. In other words, when we refuse to accept ourselves as victim of our situation and take the responsibility of our own needs, that power is the true freedom we are all seeking. So join me to listen to such wonderful stories of self discovery, self empowerment, and self love. It is my intention that through these stories, someone finds that ray of light, that place inside them where their own power lies, and they also become their own hero. If you have found me, it is your sign that you're about to change your life yourself. So let's gear up and celebrate the stories of those who have found their inner power and rewritten the stories of their life, their own self. In today's, which is the first episode of Stories of Swa, I'm thrilled to welcome someone who I have known very closely for about 5 to 6 years now. As some of you would know, I am also a business owner, and it is in my salon that I first met Tejashree. I still remember her visiting the salon along with a huge German Shepherd Danzo. We exchanged some pleasantries for the initial 2, 3 visits, and then she started talking to me about any dermat I knew of for her to work on her skin. From that sweet young girl to the amazing woman sitting with me today, here, right now, it's been a lovely journey, more like an adventure for both her and me. So, welcome Tejashree, also lovingly called TJ by our community. So, welcome TJ. Um, do you recollect the time that I'm talking about? How were things for you at that time?
I have a faint memory of what it was like, but I may be able to share the feeling of it.
Mm.
Um, you know, I was really trying to please everyone around me, not knowing what I really was. I was a big time people pleaser,
Mm-hmm.
and I'd say yes to anything and everything, whereas my body or inside of me would scream no.
Mm.
And social situations or any invitation to a gathering or a party would really stress me out, and I would still give in. I would
Mm.
go, but I would come back feeling really exhausted. And I would play the scenario in my head
Mm.
where I would say things I would have said in that scenario,
Mm.
or I would have done things in that scenario. And I would play these episodes over and over again. And that would make me feel even more bad for not showing up the way I thought I could have.
Correct, correct.
And, you know, it was like life was good, but it wasn't great either. And that was the problem.
Mm.
That was a place I did not want to be in, honestly.
Mm.
And
I remember this was also the time when you were trying to drastically reduce weight. You had changed your diet. So, this entire thing about looking for a doormat and looking for ways to lose weight, was that a kind of an acceptance that you were seeking from
oh,
people around
absolutely,
you?
absolutely. I think at that time, I thought anything outside of me would give me the validation I was seeking, be it fixing my skin
Mm.
or getting in great shape. Because I remember I was working out twice a day at that time,
Mm.
and I was on keto.
Mm.
It had been about 6, 7 months straight that I was on keto, not having carbs
Mm.
or depriving myself of the
I
foods
remember
that I
that
would have
time.
liked.
Yeah.
And I remember, somebody told me, you go lose weight and come, and then you will fix all your problems.
Mm.
So I was so fixated on losing weight because I thought that would be the first thing that would give me the approval that I was seeking.
Right.
So I think it started with my body.
Mm.
And because my skin didn't change, I remember my face was full of acne at that point in time, when I was desperately trying to do something about it.
Mm.
And diets didn't do anything, workout didn't do anything. So I was left thinking that probably,
Mm.
something else would fix the skin for me, if it was
Right.
not coming from inside.
Right. And how was it that people around you at that time, whether it is your family or your friends or people that you know, how was it that they were contributing to either making the situation better or not even better for you at that time?
Honestly, when I got to the point where I was at my thinnest,
Mm.
people would be like, oh, Tejashree, bus now, bus, don't do it. You look good this way, or, you look better when you were slightly healthier. And then the moment I'd put on weight, these were the same people who would tell me that, oh, no, 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 you're putting on weight, and that's when I was like, bus now. I mean, what do I even make mine and what do I even put away?
Yeah.
So honestly, I did not have any opinions of my own.
Mm.
I would go by what people would think, how people would perceive me,
Mm.
how people thought of me, or how they saw me.
Mm.
So it was more to do with others than my own feelings, my own needs,
Mm.
my own emotions.
Mm.
I was really neglecting myself at that point in time.
Yeah. That's a very beautiful point to make, that I was neglecting myself. How did this realization happen that you were neglecting your own self, and how did it come about for you?
So, I think just around that time, I had married my best friend,
Mm-hmm.
and I think we were 1 year into this beautiful marriage. We had got a beautiful house which we had moved into, and it was a big thing for me to celebrate. And alongside this, it was also the start of my long held dream of starting a business in the hospitality
Oh,
industry.
yes. Yeah.
And on the surface, everything seemed great. Imagine quitting a job, starting your dream,
Mm.
being able to live with my best friend, my husband then.
Mm.
And everything was great on the surface, but that left some sort of a void inside of me. And then I thought that, any and all accomplishments are not giving me what I'm seeking.
Mm.
And if I had to share this with someone, they'd be like, oh, we're so proud of you. You showed the courage of quitting your job and starting something
Right.
with absolutely no funds whatsoever. And that's very courageous of you.
Mm.
But I would still downplay that.
Mm.
I would make sure they don't praise me.
Mm.
I would let them know that, oh, no, it was nothing. Everybody does it. What's the big deal?
Mm.
Or that's okay. I mean, it's not something that's unheard of.
Mm.
This has been done and tried many times by many people before.
Mm.
And going back to the fitness thing, I remember, people who did not know me would come and take advices from me in the gym.
Mm.
Or they would reach out my trainer saying, we saw Tejashree do that. So can you help us with this?
Right.
And then when people would praise me, or even my husband, he'd say, you look so beautiful, you're doing great. And I would shut him off saying, come on, yeah, come on, kuch bhi bol raha hai, I don't deserve this. I'm not beautiful or anything. And he'd be like, of course you are. And, that point, it hit me real hard, where I'm craving the validation, I'm receiving it,
Mm.
yet I'm denying it.
Correct. When it is coming to you, you are denying it.
Yeah, and all this while I was even some part of me was craving for it because I was doing all of this
Absolutely.
to seek approval.
Absolutely.
And the time when I was like, it would have felt great to be called beautiful and pretty and confident. Here I am telling people that they shouldn't be calling me that,
Mm.
or I don't deserve any praise. I'm not worthy of any praise. And then at that time, I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Like, what is this turbulence inside and what is this unacceptance?
Mm.
And that's when I realized, boss, kuch to gadbad hai, and maybe I think I really need to do something about the way I even see things.
Correct. Were there some other factors in your life that were also contributing to this turbulence inside that you're talking about? So, other than your own relationship with yourself, you're looking for validation and yet denying it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So, were there any other contributing factors which were adding to the turbulence, and that kind of made you realize that it's becoming enough?
So, I remember it was about my health, since I was a kid.
Mm.
I've had many things going on with me, around, so when we first met, when I first decided to get help from you, I was somebody who worked out intensely,
Mm.
and what really triggered this intense working out was a surgery that I had had.
Oh, okay.
And this surgery was about, they treated a tumor which was formed inside of my hip joint.
Mm-hmm.
And to treat that, they had to graft and cut my waist bone and insert it there.
Mm-hmm.
And this wasn't the first time this had happened, this was the second occurrence.
Mm-hmm.
And I was lucky enough that it could be treated medically. But, this left a lasting impact on me because this had happened twice. And for 2 separate years in my life, I was on a walker.
Oh my goodness.
I couldn't move.
Mm.
I couldn't walk.
Mm.
And not just these two medical interventions that happened. All in all, since my childhood, I've had 5 surgeries.
Mm.
And the fact that, there came a point where I was like, why is this happening with me?
Yeah.
What is this? Like, what have I even done to, undergo 5 surgeries or have these many medical interventions throughout my life? And I was only, I think, 28 or 29 when I met you. So 5 surgeries in such a long time that left a lasting impact on me and my health and the way I saw myself.
Mm.
So this largely contributed to, me thinking that my life was absolutely turbulent.
And this, the weight loss journey that you were going through, the intense workout, all of that was happening with that operated hip bone.
Yes.
How were you managing that?
So what happened was something that really disturbed me was when they were moving me from one place to the operation theater.
Mm.
My lower body was they had given me anesthesia because of which I couldn't feel anything in my lower body.
Mm.
And when they were picking me up from one table to put me on the operation theater table, this doctor goes like, "What is all this pizza burger?"
Mm.
And that time I felt my most vulnerable self
Mm.
because there were a lot more people looking at me.
Yeah.
I couldn't tell what they were seeing.
Yeah.
And I told him, no, this is not pizza burger. I don't eat this all the time. And he's like, oh, come on, you don't tell us what it is.
Mm.
And that's when I decided that, I'll show this guy or I'll show whoever thinks that, this is all pizza burger. With come what may, I'm going to get to my fittest self.
Mm.
And I'm going to do that no matter what.
Mm.
And at that time, my second operation, they inserted a titanium plate with 6 screws on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I became oblivious to the fact that there was something inside of me. And I just went in for it. But I think that did not come from a place of happiness.
Yeah.
That came from a very stressful
Mm.
space. And I knew that I wasn't doing this for me.
Yeah. And sometimes when we have this thought that we want to prove it for others, although it can be very motivating for a lot of people, I know a lot of people who take inspiration that I'm going to prove that person wrong. But like you rightly said, the place you are coming from when you act bases this kind of an emotion is a lot of resentment, it's a lot of anger. And that really does not sit well with our body in the longer run. Did you experience that
Yes, in
somewhere
fact,
during your journey?
I realized that the more I needed to prove, I had to prove even more.
Mm.
And that's when I realized that, I do not want to be rich by borrowing. I really want to be rich by
Oh
myself.
my goodness. I don't want to be rich by borrowing. I want to be rich by myself. Beautifully said.
And then, when nothing I did gave me the happiness, despite of being in this very nice, chiseled, sculpted body,
Mm.
I realized that, ये मैंने अपने खुद के लिए नहीं करा था.
Mm.
And that's when, yes, I decided that, no, man, this is not coming from a place where I thought I could, bring in a lot of good changes in me, which were intrinsic.
Yeah,
Like the motivation was never intrinsic.
correct. And I remember the time when you first came to me. I think this was about 4 or 5 years back. Um, can you just help me understand what was that moment when you took the courage, when you took that love for yourself to that height where you said, I need help and I'm going to reach out and ask for help? What was that moment? What made you reach out for help?
So, I had made the decision that I wanted to seek help, but at that point in time, I wanted that also to happen with the approval of others. Like, I wanted somebody to validate that for me, ki, "theek hai, you can go seek help."
Mm.
But again, going back to the point, where I could not take any praise or any acceptance or any kind words, that's when it hit me that, no, this is not the way I can be going. I really, really want to do this, not because I want to fix myself or if there's anything wrong with me. I want to explore the full potential that I have.
Lovely.
And I spoke to a friend who was already seeking help at that point in time. And the reason I called her was because I knew she would support me in this. And I called her saying, listen, I've been thinking of doing this. What do you think about it? And she encouraged me a lot.
Lovely.
And that made me send you a message and then we connected.
Correct.
And when I remember, when I was walking into your place, I somewhere, I don't know, deep down, I knew that that was going to be the start of something crazy. I knew that that was going to shift my life. I did not know how, but something deep down, something deep inside of me told me that, this is it.
Wow.
And this is the beginning of it.
Wow. I would love for our listeners to know that shift in your life. And since I have been on that journey myself, I know that it does not happen overnight. We see, small, small glimpses of change in our life, and that tells us that we are on a path that we are meant to be. Um, can you take us through how it was for you? Those moments when you notice change in yourself, when you notice that relationship changing with your own self. How did that happen?
Mm, I think it's been quite a journey for me.
Mhm.
I would like to start from where it began.
Beautiful.
So this was, when I actually left from my first one-on-one session with you.
Yeah.
That was the moment I understood what self-work or what self-validation actually is.
Mm.
That was something which was absolutely absent from my dictionary.
Mm.
And sooner, I mean,
Tell me, what had you taken away that day, if you remember?
I do.
Because I would love for people to know what was your takeaway about self love, self discovery in that first session.
I do. I remember every word of it. I came in and we got talking, and then you asked me what was up. It was a very casual chat.
Mm.
And I broke down the moment I started speaking, and I started talking about my body and how much I had endured until then.
Mm.
And, one question after the other, I realized that this was not something that had just happened in those years, but it was something that I carried since my birth.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, my biggest takeaway after our coaching session was the self love and mirror work.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember you asking me, if I've ever done mirror work. And I was like, what is she even trying to ask me?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, mirror work, though I don't know. And a self love, I've only read on Instagram this affirmation, manifestation, and all. And in fact, that would throw me off balance sometimes.
Mm.
And I remember you gave me a mirror and you said, now say, I love you. And I was like, this is not what I had signed up for. And I don't know where this is going to take me. So I held a mirror in front of my eyes and I'm staring at it. Okay. And then you're like, say, I love you. So I muttered.
Mm.
And then you were like, say it out loud.
Mm.
And even if it was just the two of us, I was still like looking around and thinking, yaar, kaise bolna kaise hai ye?
Yeah.
But I mustered up the courage to say it and I did that. And something felt nice inside at that point
You
in
know what
time.
felt nice?
Mm.
Because that is something that you had been wanting to hear forever. You wanted to hear it from other people, but you said it to yourself. So it did stir something inside.
Definitely. So I went back and I would secretly start doing my mirror work. I did not want Nikhil to see it or anything.
Mm.
And I found it a little funny in the beginning, but I decided to go with it anyway. And I started doing it, and I kid you not, I actually started seeing evidences that something was working for me. Since we spoke about the dermat thing,
Right.
my acne started clearing up on its own. And just around that time, I had given up on my workouts.
Mm.
I'd started eating everything that I wanted to eat.
Mm.
I was no more on keto or a low carb diet, nothing of that sort. And I remember, I had like a big bald spot over here.
Yeah.
And that started clearing up on its own. Like I could see little hair growing on my head, and I'm like, is this me who's doing it or what? And that formed my belief in the self love and the mirror work that I never wanted to stop doing it. And I remember, my internal chatter also changed at that point in time. My inner voice was that of criticism.
Yeah.
I would constantly punish myself, for not showing up or not eating well. But this time it was different.
Yeah.
I wanted to say good things to myself. I wanted to mute the internal chatter and, let that positive voice come up. And it was then, when I realized that our subconscious is so used to hearing the negative talk that is the only thing it believes. But then I learned to, silence that voice and, say positive things so that my subconscious starts believing the new narrative.
Right. Yeah, and
And
this is what Louis also says, right? Beliefs are nothing but thoughts which are thought over and over again. And if you've been thinking a belief which has not been working for you, you can always replace it with something positive. What else happened, Tejashree? I would
so,
love to hear the trajectory of your transformation.
I'll tell you. And then just later than that, you'd announced a 2-day Heal Your Life workshop.
Mm.
And I signed up without even knowing what would happen in the workshop. I thought similar activities, similar tools which would be taught. And I went in for it. And the moment I walked in, I saw the entire vibe and everything. And I'm like, where have I come? Like, and then I saw other people also over there. And then we explored little by little, what this inner work is and how our emotions are stored in the body.
Yeah.
And that's the first place I learned where our thoughts create diseases.
Yeah.
And in my head, I'm like, which sane person would ever bring up things on himself? Like the way I had 5 surgeries, I would never bring that upon myself, if I knew that it was my thoughts creating it.
Yeah.
I was left a little bummed. I was definitely bummed about it. But my trainer back then had told me about the mind body connection. So it was easier for me to believe it at that
Correct.
point in time.
Correct.
And and I think the day 2 of the workshop, we explored something called as a family constellation. And we were asked to volunteer. I instantly raised my hand up and I went in again without knowing what this was going to be about. And the family constellation is a concept, where you choose people from the group as your parents or family members who you think of firsthand at that point in time. So I had my mother, my father, my brother over there, including my dog. And you have a dialogue with these people, imagining that you're talking to your parents or those people who you've chosen.
And asking them questions that you always wanted to ask.
Yeah. And also in that moment, I realized how things just came easily. I did not have to think them up. And I remember picking one of my dear friends as my father, and I was asking him questions which I've always wanted to ask him. And the other person who I chosen as my father, when they were responding to those questions, it really felt like my father was talking to me. I kid you not, I don't know what power that session had. I did not know who was sowing the words in their brain. And it was so organic and free flowing that I honestly got the answers I was seeking. And that day I left for home realizing and thinking that other people are also victims of victims.
Right.
And they act out of their own limited knowledge of the world and their surroundings and the people they've grown up with. And their behavior has got nothing to do with me.
Absolutely.
If I am the one who thinks in my own mind, I can also be the one who can change things in my mind. And that I think will change my external surrounding.
Absolutely.
So I think that day I had this bigger feeling that as much as I am on my journey, as much as I am making things better for me, it is best to let people be on their own journey.
Right.
And if I am whole and complete, so are they, right? And just the mere fact, that if I have this abundant power within me, which I can access, the other person to carry the same
Absolutely.
power within themselves, right?
Absolutely.
And then I realized that, I don't have to be present for people all the time. I don't want to feel the need to be needed.
Mm.
And that I can let people be and I can still be on my own journey while honoring them the way they are.
Right. And that's a beautiful thing you said, Tejashree, because it comes up a lot of time in my discussions with people who come to me for session about the relationships around them. Either there are relationships around them which trigger them, or there are relationships around them in which they want to rescue the other person. Could be their spouses, could be their parents. And for us to realize that everyone is on their own journey, and my responsibility is to make sure that my journey is going the way I want it to be. And I give freedom to other people to live their journey, live their life as they want to be. You know what had happened in that moment? That was the moment when you shifted your reality from being a victim to being your hero. Because till the moment you're telling other people, see, it is because of you, I'm like this. See, it's because of your upbringing, I have got these beliefs. You are still in that helpless victim mode. You're saying, I'm like this because of my upbringing. But the moment you shifted that and you realize that no, it has got nothing to do with them, it's got nothing to do with my upbringing, it's all about me, is when that big shift happened for you and you decided it's all me, it's about me, and I will design my life like that.
Definitely,
Beautiful.
because I'll tell you, blaming is the easy way out.
Absolutely.
Taking accountability, always very hard. But the moment I started taking accountability, it freed me in some ways.
Beautiful.
And just the fact that, okay, this happened because I made this happen, or, or this happened because of my own thinking, or
Yeah.
my own
Or
actions.
simple acceptance. Yeah, I goofed up.
Yeah,
It's okay. I made a mistake. It's all right. I will correct it, or we'll see how it
absolutely.
goes.
And again, to err is human, right?
Absolutely.
And I think our mistakes make us more human than we already are, is what I honestly realized at that point in
Exactly.
time. And just, by saying, Acha, theek hai, ho gaya. I mean, it's done now, now can't do anything about it, but I can definitely make the next day better for me by changing the narrative in my own head.
Lovely.
And I think, like you rightly pointed out, that really was the moment of that big shift, when I could internalize everything
Right.
without over intellectualizing it.
Absolutely.
And then, I was in this state of flow at that, that point onwards.
Mm. So, what was the next big life change happened after that? The workshop happened. You understood your relationship with your parents, why they were the way they were, and how you made your peace with yourself. What was it that next happened?
So while on one side of the spectrum, all this was going on the other side of the spectrum, I was starting to feel this burnout in my own career. I was starting to get tired physically and mentally to a point where I just couldn't show to work. Um, at that time, I was running a bakery with my best friend, and that was a long held dream, in fact, which got manifested. And we did that for 3 years. And in that beautiful partnership, somehow I did not get myself to show up to work. I don't know what was it that was going inside of me at that point in time. And I thought it was temporary. So I kind of pushed in and gave it some more months because, it was something that the both of us had started. And I gave it like a good 7, 8 months. But then, there came a point where I just couldn't show up. And I think that's the time when I realized I definitely needed to go on a break.
Yeah.
But I did not think that was a choice, because being productive, I felt was brought a lot of value to a person, rather than being unproductive and doing nothing.
Yeah.
And
Which is another belief you shattered.
definitely, definitely. So I decided I'm going to go on this year-long sabbatical, not a short break, long break, just go on a full year-long break. And, because what happened was, until that point in time, I had had many creative endeavors with very degrees of success. And I think that kind of added to my burnout.
Yeah.
So here I was, I shared. And another thing, what happened at that point in time, that, I could say things the way they were, there was this ease and comfort, in sharing things. And I received the same acceptance from the other end and love from the other end. And I was given a beautiful send off to celebrate my journey until then and for my journey there onward.
Wonderful.
And on my sabbatical,
And do you think, Tejashree, this beautiful send off and something that you were otherwise a little hesitant to, how do you talk to your friend and your partner about this shift that you're going to make? Um, will you will you accept when I say that that acceptance came from her because initially that acceptance came within you? You accepted that change, you accepted that power within you to stand up for yourself and say the way things were for you in its purest honesty, is how it was beautifully received by your friend as well. So she was in a way a mirror of what you were doing to yourself.
oh, absolutely, absolutely, absolutely right. When you say that, when I had the acceptance within me first, only then was I able to say it. And she mirrored the same acceptance. And such a beautiful girl to even have had the opportunity to work with. And honestly, she's also been a very big soul teacher for me.
Right.
So a big thank you to her as well, and also for me
Absolutely.
to be able to do that at that point in time and take such a big decision. And this, I think, was my first decision where I honored my own feelings, where I honored my own burnout, where I acknowledged it. Then I decided to go all in.
Lovely.
And then that was the start of my year-long break,
Yeah.
where I decided that I didn't have a plan as such, but I decided that I'm going to do everything and anything that scared me
Yeah.
and everything that I thought was not meant for me, and just go and experience life, something that I had deprived myself of earlier. So my sabbatical started with staying about 10, 12 days with my dad on a farm. That was the first time in my life where I spent 10 long days with him.
Wow.
Since I was a kid. I had not done that ever. And on our way to the farm, we had such meaningful exchanges. And at one point, something about Louise Hay came up, okay? And then he's like, I know Louise Hay. And
Oh,
I was
really?
like, what? How would you know Louise Hay? And he said, I have a book. And I said, how do you have a book? It seems that one of my cousins who's a doctor, he had gifted it to him.
Wow.
And he had already read it.
Wow.
And, I was telling him on the way that, I feel really bad for, uh, giving, like, leaving something behind and moving ahead with this break. And then, he tells me, listen, I didn't bring you up just like that. I brought you up as a VIP and you need to know that you're a VIP.
Wow.
And I had never expected him to say that. So all along, I would see him only in the way I wanted to see him.
him.
Like I was so fixated on certain things
Wow.
that is the only thing I saw. But that trip with him and that stay with him really unraveled so much about him, and that I got to see a different part of me as well. That I definitely had the acceptance
Lovely.
to see people the way they are, where they're coming from, without any judgment.
Beautiful.
And after that, I went on a solo trip, and that was to the Andamans, where I got a scuba open water divers training
Lovely.
done. And I was so close to giving up before my exam because two other people had dropped out of my course, and that really demotivated me. But then I'm like, one good thing, and by then I had learned to change my thoughts.
Correct.
So I was like, see, I'm the only one with this trainer, so I'll get one-on-one personal training.
Lovely.
So I went in and I did my course, and then I came back.
You were back from the scuba dive.
Yeah, when I was back from the scuba divers course, I somebody on Instagram put up a story. They were looking for an intern in Ladakh to manage a 50-year-old property, do social media marketing for a trekking company. And I was like, as it is, I'm on this break. Why should I deprive myself of these experiences? I might as well apply. But then when I had to apply, I was like, what do I write now in my CV? So then I was like, forget it. I'm going to write the things just the way they are.
Correct.
That I'm not up to anything and I don't know where I'm headed. But I'm willing to give my whole self to the entire experience, and I'll show up the way they want me to show up.
Correct.
And I wrote this very honest CV stating everything. And I'd even told them that, literally, like I was quite Bella at that point in time. To my surprise, they accepted my resume and they wanted me as is.
Yeah.
And then when I had a conversation with them, the person on the other end says that they also run a bakery in the market.
Oh, love.
I can go and bake whenever I want to. And I was like, what more do I want? And what are these evidences that the universe is
Yeah.
showing me? So all excited and everything, I decided to pack and shop for winter wear and everything, and all set to go to Ladakh. But a week before flying out, my leg froze. My left leg just randomly froze, and I was like, "What is this?" So I thought, I'll go see a physiotherapist so that I can at least pick up my own bags from the airport and go. And one thing led to the other, like one X-ray led to an MRI, and then we realized that I had a disc bulge in my spine, which which took away all sensations from my leg. I had lost all sensations in the leg. Even if somebody would prick anything, I would only feel the touch, but I wouldn't feel anything. And I was shattered to pieces because of the medical history that I've had. I had no heart to even go see a specialist or anybody. Yet we got a lot of opinions. Forget second and third, we must have got about 6, 7 opinions. And out of those 7 people, 6 of them said that I had to go in for a surgery that very day, else there would be irreversible damages to my health. And I was shattered. I was broken, after all that I was doing, thinking well, doing things to make myself better. This is not what I want. This is not what I invited. This was not a part of my sabbatical plan either. And out of all of them, there was only one doctor who said that I may not need a surgery, but I might have to take an injection for which I have to be admitted. And we came back home, and fortunately, dad was in Pune at that point in time, and the entire family was in Nashik. And he was present. And the moment the doctor, took a pause before telling me what it was, I started crying because all the past episodes started flashing in front of my eyes, the OT and everything. And then after the doctor told me that, ye injection le lo vagera, and then you rest, and then we can do a 6 months program where, with exercise and all of that, you'll get better. The only thing I took back with me was that I did not need surgery.
Correct.
And when I came back home, my father did some research and he found out that this could be fixed with yoga and exercises.
Yeah.
And he really encouraged me at that point in time. And we were like, now where to even find such a yoga therapist? This also is a miracle of one sort. Nikhil, my husband, he said, I'll call along. He hadn't spoken to this friend in a long time, but he had heard of her cervical issue. And he said, I'll call her and ask. I said, Nikhil, how would she know? Why would you want to ask her? Forget it, don't ask her, And he's like, Arey, let me ask her.
Yeah.
Kya ja raha hai apna? And then he called her and she recommended a yoga therapist in Pune. And then I reached out to the yoga therapist and I told her, listen, I've become a vegetable. I can't move. How do I even get myself to therapy? And then she's like, काही नाही तू ambulance मध्ये आली तरी काही problem नाहीये stretcher वर आली तरी काही problem नाहीये I'll take you just come however you are. And in that moment I'm like this is it. I think I've found the right person. So I kind of I struggled to get in the car and I somehow we reached over there. And she puts one traction on me and I'm all okay. The next day, I could stand up after 1.5 months of sleeping and resting. And just before that, I remember speaking to you. I was really shattered and I did not know what to do. I was also really saddened by the fact that I could not go to Ladakh and I would have had to leave it. And then, I remember your sentence where you said that Tejashree, probably this time it's time to put everything to work that, you've studied earlier and you've practiced earlier. And I was like, maybe, yes, probably this is a chance and an opportunity to put everything to work to heal myself.
Absolutely.
And in fact, this sounds really odd, but I'm very grateful to all the 5 surgeries that I had. This time I felt like I could do this on my own.
Absolutely.
And we went and, things started improving. And around the same time that I got yoga therapy, we were doing a book reading together. Do you remember The Power is Within You?
Yes.
And I think that was my second book reading with you. And in that, we also covered some aspects of the body, if I'm not wrong, or
Yeah.
it was largely on the power that you can access
The
inside
power
of
of the
you. Yeah.
subconscious. Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah. And then, you know what I started doing when they used to put tractions on me? I would visualize getting better. I would visualize doing things that I would want to do
Wow.
when I was,
I'm getting goosebumps.
when, you know, I would have been fit, you know. So I would see myself trekking, I would see myself dancing, because by then a lot of people had told me, you know, sciatica kabhi theek nahi hota, you know, you always have to live with it. And I'm like, you might have to live with it. I don't want to live with it, and I will
Absolutely.
never live with it.
Absolutely.
So I started visualizing getting better. And then when I would come home, I would draw around my spine where, you know, the disc bulge was. I would draw a spine and I would draw flowers blooming around it, you know, like giving it a lot of love. And I think that spiked my interest in art therapy. So then I think in one of our chats, I must have said that to you. And then I think that appeared on your Instagram and you sent me a screenshot of an art therapy course.
Course, yeah.
And I'm like, this is exactly what I wanted to study and learn more about. So I did the online art therapy course, and over there, um, art, the mind, body, wellness, everything solidified, you know, for
Yeah.
me. And then I started to see the connection.
Correct.
And so this thing which spiked my interest in art was, I think, also a very natural progression of what I planned earlier in my sabbatical. I planned to do 100 days of art.
Correct.
Where I decided that I'll show up however I want to with whatever minimum or whatever skills I had. I'm going to make some art. And I did the 100 days of art, and that gave me the confidence of showing up. And that led me to get one of my friends asked me to make a commissioned art piece for her.
Lovely.
And I was like, what? Oh, that's crazy. And on my vision board, so at the start of the year, you remember doing a vision boarding workshop.
Right.
And that was my second vision board, you know, because my first one had already got ticked off in about 6-7 months' time. So this time I was more pumped, you know, to make another vision board. And this vision board also, despite of the setback that sciatica gave me for those few months, I had everything ticked off by October, November. And then one thing led to the other. The commission art piece happened. And just after that, you know, there was also a creators slash influencers meet happening somewhere in Pune. And it was an open call for people to join. And by then, you know, I wanted to be identified as, like, a part of me said that, you know, I can be an artist or I am an artist. And a part of me said, you know, ये ऐसा 100 day art करके कौन सा बड़ा artist बनने वाला है. But then I was like, ठीक है, चल, I think this at least is the start of something nice. And I want to go for this creators meet. But then, you know, I started thinking, you know, even if I go there, I'm going to have to introduce myself. What do I introduce myself as? Because I was not doing any job. I didn't have any title as such. And I thought I may not have a lot of meaningful things to share at that point in time. But yet, you know, I still wanted to go.
Yeah.
And when I say that, you know, I did not have any title, the thing is, I've had many creative endeavors in my life, you know, like starting from going to those design classes, dropping out, and then I pursued a bachelor in arts. And between my bachelor in arts and my master's, I used to volunteer at a drug rehab. And then I went on to do my master's in French, followed by which I taught to grade 7, 8, and 10 students for a year. And after being a teacher, I did translations for another
Lovely.
6 months. After doing the translations, I thought, you know, I wanted to venture in the corporate world a little bit. So I got into corporate and I started working with an insurance company back then as a French language associate. And I did that for 2 years. And then after that, you know, I got into baking.
Yeah.
And then when I realized, ये सब करके भी, what do I have to tell them? Because I am none of these things right now. And what would it be like? And that's when it hit me that I don't have to be my work. I don't have to be my job. I don't have to be anything else to show up. You know, even when I was playing all these roles, I was still Tejashree.
Yeah. It's just today I read somewhere that me as a person is not what I do. It's who I am.
Oh, absolutely. And this hard realization, I think it was not painfully beautiful, or maybe we can say that, because the sweetness of realizing that I am not any of these titles.
Absolutely.
And I am what I think I am. And beyond these societal constructs, there's a lot more to me than just the work I do.
Lovely.
So this meet that I showed up for literally was a game changer all over again. And then, that time I used to think, maybe I don't know how to talk, because growing up, I was told, you don't know how to talk, keep quiet, or, okay, don't
Nobody
participate
will
now.
believe that.
And this girl at the meet, she asked me if I have ever shared my experiences and written about them. And I was like, written about them? And then she suggested that I start a blog post.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, that is something, And then at that day, I came back feeling very empowered. I came back feeling absolutely confident. And then I realized that, when I was in tune with myself, honoring my inner voice and showing up the way I wanted to, I was in this flow. And when I was in this flow, things started coming to me just like that. I didn't have to work hard for it. When after the art therapy course, I started making more art. I went for other artists meet and other workshops. I realized that, when you do something without any resistance, when it starts to flow naturally, that's when I realized this is who I want to be. I want to be an artist, because there is zero resistance. I enjoy it.
Correct.
It comes from a place of happiness.
Absolutely.
And this is something that I've never sought validation for, although I get it.
Lovely.
But that's not been my aim whatsoever. And I'm so happy doing what I do right now.
Lovely. So happy to hear where you are today, Tejashree, and it's been a beautiful journey. Um, Before we end the episode, what is it that you would like to leave our viewers, our listeners with? What is it that you would want to leave behind as something from your own experience?
So if I have to go back and review my journey, there is one big takeaway that I have is to discern between the voice of your own and the voice of others. What do I mean by that? Say, growing up, we hear a lot of things about ourselves and the beliefs we pick up, and somehow we make those beliefs our own, not realizing that it is somebody else's projection. And this voice of others, generally, what happens is it tends to overpower your own emotions, and you
Right.
start believing anything people say to you. So it's very important that you understand what your voice says and what the other person says. So when you have to listen to your own voice will always be that of compassion.
Correct.
It will be filled with love. It will be very settling and comfortable, and it will leave you feeling at ease.
Absolutely.
And the voice of others is mostly always of criticism. It has an undertone of negativity, and it will not make you feel comfortable. So that's when you know that it is their projection and it's not what you're thinking about yourself. And the second, honesty would be something that I've learned from my own life and its own course, is that you need to learn to allow yourself mistakes. Because without trying, there's no knowing.
Absolutely.
Like, you know, mm, in my own journey, like whatever I went through in my sabbatical, a large part of it was based on just choosing faith, for the entire time.
Absolutely.
And maybe I'd like to take help of a saying, to articulate better what I'm trying to say is that faith and fear both demand you believe in something you do not see.
Yeah.
Like beyond faith, you don't know what lies.
Correct.
Neither do you know what lies ahead of fear. So what would you choose at the end of the day? Faith, right?
Yeah.
So I decided to place immense faith in everything that I was doing and thinking, and life unfolded on its own for me.
Cute.
So coming back to that, like you gotta learn to allow yourself mistakes and also have faith that, whatever happens will happen, but you will always feel good that you tried.
Yeah.
And by allowing mistakes, I mean that, you don't have to put the pressure of being perfect on you all the time, because perfection, it not only relies on imperfection, but it thrives on it.
Yeah.
Without imperfection, there's no perfection.
Absolutely.
Like without day, you can't see night.
Mm.
Without good, the bad doesn't
That is so
exist.
beautiful.
You need one thing to compare it against the other thing. So perfection and imperfection go hand in hand. And if you allow yourself to be imperfect,
Yeah.
there's nothing wrong in it.
Absolutely.
So it's okay to try things. It's okay to, let yourself be vulnerable. It's okay if you don't make the cut each time. It's completely fine, because from my own journey, I've realized that every setback was only a setup.
Absolutely.
And everything that I thought was not working out for me eventually ended up working out for me.
Yeah.
So it's very important the way we see things in our own head.
Yeah.
And eventually it's you who's always going to be with you. It's you who thinks in your own mind. So it's you who can bring about changes for your own self.
Absolutely.
And these changes don't have to be very drastic. In fact, it's the small things which compound to a larger thing.
Absolutely.
And something as simple as eating what you like to eat, something as simple as wearing what you would like to wear, something as simple as saying, no, I don't want to make it to the party tonight. I just want to be at home by myself. And just being able to be your authentic self, show up as you want to show up without thinking what others might feel. And what another thing that happens is, when you start to show up authentically, it's not that you lose people, you gain what's meant for you.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Tejashree, I'm very curious to know how this inner work, this inner journey has been for you. And the reason I'm very curious to know is because this journey can become very solitary sometimes. It is you and your triggers, it is you and your reflections. I remember my own inner journey was basically a dialogue between my coach and me most of the times, and then the other times between me and me. So there was really nobody else that I could tell what I was going through, what I was working on. So it was an isolated journey, but it was the fact that it was just me that it made it even more empowering, because it was just me working on myself, nobody else. How was it for you? What was it that you did when you were on your inner journey? Did you find support? Did you look for support? How did you navigate your way around it?
So for me, initially, it was just me and you.
Mhm.
And I think that went on just for a short while, say for about 2 or 3 months, until the Two-Day Heal Your Life workshop and the book circles happened. And that's when I realized that there is a certain amount of beauty in being surrounded by people who are also on similar journeys, who also want to break generational patterns, who want to do better for themselves, who are also striving to show up authentically for themselves. And this shared journey made it even more, I wouldn't say interesting, but it deepened my own healing in ways I hadn't imagined at all. Just the mere fact of being surrounded by people where there is this comfort of sharing, and where you can be vulnerable. And that's
Also, the fact that you're not alone and that there are other people also who are on a similar path like yours.
absolutely. And I think that's the beauty of it, all of us on similar journeys.
Yeah.
And that makes it even more encouraging to do your own work along with the support of these women.
Right.
And I think I'm absolutely privileged to have the support of such a wonderful community through Swwayam.
Yeah.
And these friends I've made, and I know that this friendship is also going to go to the grave.
Absolutely.
And it's just very beautiful, having that space, having that support, and having access to this space whenever you want to.
Right.
That definitely did not make me feel that I was alone or isolated on my own journey. And I think that is the power of community groups.
Yeah.
Where also I learned that there is tremendous amount of strength which lies in vulnerability.
Absolutely. And I very strongly believe, like you rightly said, that when we are on the journey, we are not looking for anybody to give us answers. That work we are doing ourselves. What we most of the time needs is just someone to sit and listen to us. And that is all that needs. And I think that is where the community and the people who understand what you're doing, how you're working on yourself, and giving you that compassionate shoulder or ear to listen to, that itself, um, I think it's like a very nice warm blanket of love. Yeah.
Yeah. And just the other day I read a quote on Instagram which said that, shame dies when shared in safe spaces.
Wow.
And this is something that I have genuinely witnessed. In fact, I would go on to add embarrassment, resentment, and guilt also to the same sentence. And really, I mean, it is what it is.
Yeah. When you share it is when you're ready to release it. So beautifully said. Lovely. So here's another thing that I want to ask you. And the reason I want to ask you is because it comes to me from my friends. Because I am a coach now, because I do this work, my friends believe that I have become some spiritual master and I have mastered my triggers and I'm going to be in a Zen space
Mm.
all the time, which is very hard, very far from reality. It does not happen like that. So I have my own triggers, I have my own way of dealing with it. How is it that you handle your triggers and conflicts? Have you overcome all your triggers? Or do you have a different way to look at them now? How is it for you?
So let's say in a conflict situation, initially I would be very defensive
Mm-hmm.
and I would only listen to a point, where I knew that I could step in and say what I wanted to say, like my reactions were so impulsive that while the other person was speaking, I would try and make my own answers and make my response in a way that, the moment they stop, I could be ready with another reaction
So, yeah.
or an answer.
Yeah.
And now I definitely take that small pause before answering, and that has changed everything for me. These are not some monumental shifts, just that little moment of silence before I respond has changed the whole game for me, the way I handle conflict situations. In fact, there are very less conflict situations now.
Lovely.
But even if there are, I now have the tools to better cope with those situations. It's not that things don't trigger me anymore. Of course, I'm human, and if things stop triggering me, then I don't know what would life be like. It would be a very delusional life for me.
Yeah.
And these triggers honestly give me an opportunity at that small window to look inside of me, because eventually I am the one who's mirroring things, right? So
Fully said.
every time there's a trigger, I know it's not about the other person, and I know it's coming from a deeper place inside of me, which calls for attention.
Yeah.
And I'm very mindful of that fact. And I've reached that level of acceptance that ठीक है, मैंने करा होगा, मुझसे हुआ होगा, fine. In fact, I thank my triggers for showing me whatever turbulence there's inside of me or whatever little corrections I need, what my shortcomings are, whatever it is. So these triggers have been a blessing.
Absolutely.
I've changed my way around thinking about triggers.
Yeah.
So it is that. And another thing that I wanted to, share was that, through whatever I've lived until now, I've developed this faith even in the uncertainty. I know that this time, I don't have a concrete plan, and I'm happy that I don't have a plan because that allows me to receive the abundance and many surprises that I'm eventually game for, know. And honestly, things don't scare me. Like, I don't fear what future would be like because I have this unshakable faith in me that I know things are going to be great.
Lovely.
Even if they aren't, I also know that that could also lead me some beautiful to some beautiful place. This beautiful sentence from a book that we did together called Enough Already.
Yeah.
It says that there are two ways to ride first class, one in the actual seat and one in the heart.
Art. Yeah.
So I've taken that from the book.
Yeah.
And I know that, for things to happen, they have to happen first in the mind. And that's where I put a lot of focus on. And I'm quick to change my negative spiraling thoughts. It's not that I don't spiral, I do, but I'm quick to acknowledge that and shift my focus to something better and positive. But that does not mean brushing my feelings under the carpet.
Absolutely.
When
That is the beauty of all the self reflection that we do, all the introspection that we do, is that our response to the same situation changes. And when you are noticing yourself seeing that, that means that something big inside of you is shifting. And that's the biggest proof, that you have shifted. Situations will remain same, people will remain same, but your response to the same set of people is now different, is more controlled,
and
more happy.
True. Everything said and done. And also, this one thing that I would really like to highlight was, during the whole sciatica event, I realized that pain is a very good indicator of things that are not working or working inside of the body. And while pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice.
Yeah,
It
lovely.
definitely is a choice that we make.
Lovely.
We decide how much attention and focus we need to give to the pain. and I do not choose to suffer.
Absolutely.
I will sit with the pain. I will sit with the hurt. I will feel the sadness if I have to. It's not like, shove it under the carpet and move on, move on. And the biggest lie we tell ourselves is time heals everything. I think time ka ek hi job hai, chalte rehna.
चलते रहना.
There's no other way to do it. But I think we decide if we want to heal things or not.
And also because I am also somebody who struggled with body issues for the longest part of my life. I want to add on to say that nobody knows my body better than me. So no trainer, no doctor, no therapist will know the workings of my body better than I do. It's just that I have to be in sync with my emotions. I have to be in sync with what my body is trying to tell me, and then everything is going to go in the direction that you want it to go. That's
So true. And I don't know if you've sensed this. I'm sure you have. But when you want to do something against your body's will and you can't say no, your body will start saying no for you.
yeah.
It does the things that, I mean, it when I say that, your body starts speaking for you, it starts saying no for you, it will first give you the signs that, this is not meant for you.
Yeah.
It could be anything. You might be down with a fever. You might
You
have,
cut yourself on the finger, you hit your toe with the table, something like
yeah,
that.
these small hurts or anything. So it's really important that we start picking up on our body's cues.
Lovely. Thank you so much, Tejashree. This was a beautifully insightful episode of Stories of Swa. And Stories of Swa with Tejashree's episode, what I have taken away. Um, Story of Tejashree is the story of choosing the voice that she believes in. And it is the voice of her own self that she has started to listen to. She has started to look at herself with a lot of love, with a lot of acceptance. And the world around her will start shifting because the world inside her has shifted. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much, Tejashree, for sharing your story. It takes a lot of courage, but I know you are full of love for yourself. And so I wouldn't say it comes easy, but it comes with a lot of love, whatever you have shared. Thank you so much for sharing
Thank
your
you.
story.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a wonderful time
Thank you.
having this talk with you. And honestly, this has healed a part of me which I did not even know healing. Just the mere fact of being able to share
Share.
my journey with others.
Yes.
I know that it's not my individual journey, but a shared one.
Right.
This leaves me feeling absolutely empowered, and I'm very grateful for you,
Thank
for bringing me here and letting me speak.
Thank you. Thank you so much. What I want to leave my viewers with is a question. Are you living your life the way you want it? Or is there some scope for change? And if there is some scope for change, are you making that change yourself? Are you writing your own story of life? Thank you so much for listening to us. I hope something that you heard today resonated with you and touched your heart. The beauty of these stories is that they are real stories by real people who have gone through some real issues in their lives and overcome it. I hope you take away something from this story today and will join us for another one very soon. To continue this journey with me, please like, comment, subscribe, and share with as many people as you can. Thank you so much.